Thank you to the organizing committee for inviting me to talk about Desert Flower Centre. South Australia is a very fitting location for this centre, as its floral emblem is the stirred desert pea. Of all Australia's floral diversity, why was a desert flower chosen? Because in the harshest environment, we are thrilled when a flower of such beauty blossoms and thrives. Desert Flower Australia raises awareness about female genital mutilation and offers holistic medical care and support to the victim. What's FGM? You all know that, what it means. It's intentional removal of parts of genitalia for non-medical reason. WHO has announced 4 different types, but all of them include some part of removal of clitoris. I have been seeing these patients since 2013 and helping them with regenerative medicine and minimally invasive surgery, including PRP, laser, and fat grafting. And in this one, you can see the preoperative, intraoperative, and postoperative reversal of FGM. About 2 to 3 years ago, Khadija came and talked to me if I could expand my services to more women, because about 200,000 women live in Australia. Back then, Khadija was the founder of No FGM Australia, and she inspired me to do so. I talked to my family, and my daughter, Nadia, opted to have her 21st birthday as a platform to raise awareness for this problem, and we were very overwhelmed that many colleagues from different states attended, politicians came, and it was a fantastic gala dinner. And we decided with Dr. Tran Nguyen, who was my fellow back then, to go to Germany and visit Desert Flower Center over there, and also meet the CEO of the Desert Flower Foundation in Austria. We have checked notes, and we looked at their operation. They looked at our minimally invasive approach, and it was surprising to us that they actually liked the way we looked after our women. However, running a center was something new to us, and we got all the protocols, and they have also shared their constitutions with us. The purpose of creating Desert Flower Center is to help women who have suffered FGM by providing multidisciplinary and holistic care. Also aim to raise community awareness about the issue. But we decided that Desert Flower Center South Australia will also assist patients with labial fusion, severe scarring from iatrogenic and trauma or hypoestrogenic causes. And that was because the very first patient that was referred to Desert Flower Center was an Australian woman who was cut at age 3 by her mother when she went through a schizophrenic episode. We founded the center. Now I am proud to say that Desert Flowers is its own entity, and in fact we want every state to have a desert flower so that people don't have to travel. And I am honored to announce that the Wellbeing and Recovery Research Institute supports fundraising research on FGM for Desert Flower South Australia. We have a number of board members from psychologists, psychiatrists, gynecologists, and members from Wellbeing and Recovery Research Institute. Our ambassador, educator, and counselor, who will talk to us soon, has inspired us through this journey, and she had contributed significantly to our website. Our other ambassador, Lucy Gitchum, who is a transgender patient, and she stands for all the women who have had trauma and severe problem with their genitalia. So far, we have been referred 24 patients. 19 of them had conservative management, and 18 underwent PRP and laser. And they are having yearly PRP and laser, and they have no sexual problem. 6 of those women opted to have reversal surgery as they were dating, and they are younger women, and they want normalization of their genitalia. Interestingly, 5 of those women had other gynecological issues, and when they discussed the issues with us, 4 of them wanted to be restitched because they had gone through vaginal birth and they wanted to go back to where they were, and of course this is illegal. I just want to take a quick moment to thank my mentors. Without their help and their encouragement, we would never go beyond their comfort zone. It's easy to do something, but it is more important who is behind you when you are doing innovative work. And also, I want to finish the talk with this quotation from Rumi: "With love, one can transform thorns into flowers." Thank you.
Okay, Khadija's just running up the stairs now, so it'll only be a few seconds and we'll switch over. Go for it.
Hi, everyone. I'm so honored to be here today. FGM for me is a lifelong mission. It's not that I'm just a survivor. I have dedicated my life to this form of what is known to be child abuse, sexual violence, physical violence, and gender discrimination. I'm so glad the speaker before us was talking about how gender does have an impact in a whole range of health issues. So we do know gender discrimination can also be a social determinant of health. When I was between the age of 9 and 10, my mom subjected me to female genital mutilation. At the time, I wouldn't know what female genital mutilation was. I didn't even know I would be at risk of it. And that's how insidious this practice and act can be, that you might not even be aware that you're in front of somebody who may be at risk. And I'm hoping through our work that we can change that. But I was just a child who just thought my mother wanted to go for a mini holiday. And what would end up happening wasn't a holiday, but instead she had paid an older elderly lady to hold me down while she mutilated me. So I have experienced type 2 FGM, which is when they cut off your clitoris as well as your labia minora. I want to know why my mom made this choice at that time. I just thought, why would my primary caregiver pay somebody to do this to me? It made no sense to me. And I would spend weeks sitting in a bathtub of Dettol to be healed, which made no sense given that no anesthesia had been given to me and the instrument used was a rusty knife. I'm lucky to be alive today because FGM can quickly lead to murder as well and death in a lot of situations. I came to Australia in 2001 with my family as refugees, and I had no memory of what had transpired that particular day. I had trauma, which had been talked about a lot here. My brain did what it did best to protect me. It kept the memory away. This would change when I started volunteering for an organization called Women's Health Statewide. Some of you will have remembered them back in the day. They don't exist anymore. I think now they've moved on to Dale Street. But they used to run a program there around HIV, working with women's health. But they had a particular program called the Female Genital Mutilation Education Program. Unbeknownst to me, this program had anything to do with my personhood who had amnesia. I thought, oh, this sounds great, amazing, I will help out. I started volunteering there, helping sort out, packages and training information that the director at the time would utilize to train medical professionals on FGM. One day, as I was packing these packs away, I came across the three main types. There are 4, but the 3 main types of FGM in a drawing. And as I was looking at this diagram, type 2 particularly stood out to me because this will be the first time I will see my genitalia represented in a document. Because as most of you know, the way we see genitalia and the way we see vulvas and vaginas particularly, well, they're not always inclusive of those who sit outside of the default and the norm. We all know that. So if you have any scarring, any deficiency, any change, it's not always reflected in diagrams, in schools, in education. So when I saw these types in front of me and I saw type 2 particularly, you could say, well, it triggered my memory. And then I remembered what had happened that particular day and how I was the subject of what was called in Australia and across the world, female genital mutilation. But where I was born in Sierra Leone, it was called female circumcision. Not to be confused with male circumcision, but that was the name for it. Of course, I confronted my mom, tried to be a sassy little black girl, but it didn't go well given that she fed me and housed me. It's a bit tricky to have a say. But I did have a conversation with my mom about why she had ultimately made this decision for her 2 daughters. when she herself was a survivor. She had been subjected to it, and this has been going on in my family for generations to generation. And it has been happening in my community for generation to generation. When I confronted her, her explanation for why she had made this ultimate decision was what I would call only internalized sexism, was what the reasons were. She said she believed it would make us clean and pure, and we would be more marriageable. And by virtue of having a clitoris, we would have become promiscuous and, I guess, bang everything that moved, basically. No scientific facts to back any of these arguments, but those were the reasons given, and those were the reasons that this act, that is such a brutal form of childhood abuse, takes place. Reasons that are not valid as far as I'm concerned, and definitely not valid in the medical world, as we all know. But I'll go on at the age of 13 to look at my mom in the eye, and this is the person who feeds me, let's remember that, and say to her, it ends with me. Because to me, I ultimately made the decision that no more little Khadijas should be created. This is an act that needed to be stopped. Just like years ago, we had food binding, and communities and people worked hard to stop such an act. FGM needs to have the same. And it's sad that we live in a world where we have 200 million across the world survivors. But in South Australia, or in Australia specifically, we have 200,000. And I'm one of those 200,000 survivors. So somehow in your line of work, you will come across women like me. When I first started experiencing the symptoms associated with FGM, I had no idea they were related to FGM. I sought so much medical treatment, nobody could figure out what was wrong with me. I had chronic pelvic pain. As I was listening to all the other presentations, I have to say I felt like I was being validated in my own experiences. But I had chronic pelvic pain, I had nerve pain, I had periods that lasted for more than 7 days, and I would be admitted at the emergency for most of my periods because your normal painkillers did not help me. I would be on the floor for those 7 days in pain, barely able to walk or talk. So an ambulance will be called, and I'll be taken to the hospital, and they'll give me morphine drips, send me back home with endone, and it will be repeated the next month again. I constantly had UTIs that could not be explained by anything. That was my life. And to be honest with you, I thought that is how I would live for the rest of my life. All the presentations I made to the hospital, nobody ever asked me if I had FGM. And numerous ultrasounds were done. I was even checked for endometriosis. A simple question, and this is what I say in all my training to medical professionals, in your history taking, if you could just ask, have you had any alterations? Were you cut as a child? What a difference that could have made instead of spending 6 years running around like a headless chook with no solutions and nobody able to tell me why I had all the symptoms I had. But with Desert Flowers Center, we can change that. With the work we're doing, we will change that. We don't have to have many Khadijas running around like headless chooks, being tested for everything under the sun, when a simple question, a simple understanding of the demographic that are impacted by FGM could change that potentially. So when I started my journey, I was a survivor who was just trying to educate the Australian community around FGM to make sure that Australian medical professionals particularly could provide culturally appropriate care and treatment to women like myself. But it's broadened from that to ensuring that we protect the 11 girls a day who are at risk of FGM in Australia. And yes, you heard me right, 11 girls a day are at risk of being subjected to FGM. Just 2 years ago, a study done with pediatricians in Australia found that they were seeing babies as young as 4 months old with injuries consistent with FGM. 4 months old babies were being cut within Australia or being taken overseas for the purpose of having FGM. We have had 3 successful prosecutions already, and that's big. But guess what? I want to live in a world where we don't wait until a child is cut, and we create women like myself who have to live with the health consequences, and their lifelong health consequences of FGM. I want to prevent the act from happening in the first place. So as we think about Desert Flowers, we think of recovery and what it means to go from survivor to victory, or to move from that stage of, okay, this has happened to me. How do I ensure that it doesn't happen to someone else. My call of action to you this afternoon is to say, please work with us at the Desert Flower Center in collaborating in any form possible so we can ensure that we are providing, I guess, access to proper health care but support to those 200,000 women who, I think, hopefully when the borders open, trust me, I think we will be inundated with women coming from interstate as well to seek our services. FGM is a form of child abuse. It's gender-based violence, it's discrimination, and it happens right here in Australia. And I want to live in a world where every woman who has experienced FGM, no matter who they go to see, is able to get that treatment and support that she deserves. Because access to proper health care is a human right. And I would like for all of you to join us in fighting for that right as well. Thank you.